It's 10 o'clock, and this is Fox 10 Talks. It's being called the most lethal plane ever built. President Trump just saying this morning he hopes we never have to use it. But if we do, he says, our enemies won't, this is a direct quote, our enemies won't know what the hell hit them. So that was what we heard out of the White House just a little while ago this morning. So we welcome you to Fox 10 Talks. We keep the information and the conversation rolling at 10 a.m. A lot of folks already joining us. You can watch on YouTube by going to Fox 10 Talks, or of course on the amazing Fox local app. Grab it on your phone if you don't have it yet. But Donald Trump, the 45th and 47th president, says the new warplane is going to be called the F-47. He said that was a beautiful number and that Boeing will build it. It's sort of a combination, as I've been watching this whole thing unfold today. Sounds like it's a kind of a combination of the F-45 and the stealth bomber, but with an army of drones to accompany it. So between him and the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, and a couple of top flight military leaders, the excitement over this new generation of lethal U.S. warplane was basically palpable. Take a listen.
I'm thrilled to announce that at my direction, the United States Air Force is moving forward with the world's first sixth-generation fighter jet. Number sixth generation. Nothing in the world comes even close to it. And it'll be known as the F-47. The generals picked a title, and it's a beautiful number, F-47. It's something the likes of which nobody has seen before in terms of all of the attributes of a fighter jet. There's never been anything even close to it, from speed to maneuverability to what it can have to payload. And this has been in the works for a long period of time. After a rigorous and thorough competition between some of America's top aerospace companies, the Air Force is going to be awarding the contract for the next generation air dominance platform to Boeing. As you know, it was highly competed for. There was a lot of competition, generals, and it's been going on for a long time. Very, very tough competition, but this plane is produced numbers that nobody's ever seen before. The F-47 will be the most advanced, most capable, most lethal aircraft ever built. An experimental version of the plane has secretly been flying for almost 5 years, and we're confident that it massively overpowers the capabilities of any other nation. There's no other nation. We know every other plane. I've seen every one of them, and it's not even close. This is a next level. America's enemies will never see it coming. Hopefully we won't have to use it for that purpose, but you have to have it. And if it ever happens, they won't know what the hell hit them.
We say as our mission in the United States Air Force is to fly, fight, and win air power anytime, anywhere. If you want to go anywhere, you have to have a platform that gets you anywhere. This provides the president options from the very one end, which is a quick response, and then we can get right back into fighting stance without having to deploy troops that are going to take maybe months and cost more lives. We can be back in fighting stance, and maybe we restore that deterrence.
Interesting. Just very, let me see. Can you hear me okay? Very interesting that the when they're talking about these drones, what we don't really know is, do these drones, are they like hypersonic speed that can fly with the aircraft? Or are they in a bay door somewhere and they're weaponized? I mean, there's so much that they're not telling us, but it absolutely does seem very fascinating just in terms of what's going on there. Now, that was not the only topic that was covered today. As you can imagine, with the reporters that were assembled, as a matter of fact, Peter Doocy was front and center asking questions, and one of the very first things he wanted to know was this showdown that's going on. It feels like kind of a power play between the president and this judge. Syleste joins, by the way. Good morning.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, here, let me just open up your
Can
mic.
you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
we have a whole new panel here.
Wow,
Very excited.
very fancy.
You sound very good.
Thank you.
Anyway, it does feel like a power play between a federal judge, and these judges are used to having their orders followed no matter what, like they come down on high from God.
Right.
And then you've got a president who says, look, I'm the chief executive of the country when it comes to issues involving, members who are people who are in the country illegally, who are part of criminal gangs, who I consider to be terrorists. They got to go. And I'm the one who gets to make that call, not a judge somewhere. But anyway, here's how he responded to that.
They're a group of thugs. They come from Venezuela. They come from the prisons of Venezuela. They're very, very dangerous people, but they didn't look so dangerous when the guards took care of the situation from El Salvador. And I want to thank the president. He's a friend of mine. He's done a great job. But I just can't imagine that the Democrats are taking this issue where they want to have them back. So now they have men playing in women's sports. They have transgender for everyone. They have open borders. They have all of their crazy policies that are, I think, 95-5, not 90-10, okay? And their new policy is, let's bring Trinidad back into our country. Let's bring these are the worst gang members there are. They looked amazingly frail, though, by the way they were handled. It's very amazing. They weren't, when they were in Colorado, cutting the fingers off a man because he made a phone call to the police. They seemed a lot tougher then than they did when they were having their heads shaved and they were in shackles. They're tough people. They're bad people. We don't want them in our country. We can't let a judge say that he wants them. He didn't run for president. He didn't get much more than 80 million votes. And we just can't let that happen. It'd be so bad for our country. I won on the basis of getting criminals out of our country.
Okay. So we hear just a little bit about what the president's argument is in this whole situation, Celeste.
Yes.
And, people are talking about a constitutional crisis. And I've actually heard it described from both directions. On the one hand, if a president doesn't obey an order from a judge, then you could look at it and say, well, that creates a constitutional crisis.
Right.
On the other hand, you could look at it. Pam Bondi, the attorney general, says a judge somewhere, anywhere, who doesn't have all the facts when it comes to the dangerous element of people in the country illegally, reported to be members of this Trinidad violent criminal gang
from Venezuela,
and foreign relations between countries where there was already a deal put in place between the U.S. and El Salvador. That the constitutional crisis could be looked at it the other way. The president is powerless to institute what he feels are the steps that are necessary to protect the country. Either way you look at it.
Well, I think you also have to look at, so as you were showing that, soundbite from the president, I pulled up like Denver newspaper, gang activity, Venezuela.
Right.
And the newspapers in Colorado have all said they're well aware of all of the dangerous activity that these gang members have been committing in the state. So I'm having trouble understanding if we want to care for the community, right? And we want to make sure that we have safer communities. What's the problem with moving them out if they're illegal?
To me, it seems like the argument going the other way. Hang on here. I'm just going to call up our two shots.
Our chat box is dark.
What's going on? Yeah.
You like that?
It's actually easier to read.
It really is.
So I do like that. So that's certainly one of the arguments. The other argument is judges are used to having their orders followed.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and then they can put a deadline in. Whether the president has time to deal with it or not, he's certainly got plenty of lawyers. But it is our poll question. And let's go right to it, Celeste, because I gave this to Ken in the Internet Center at about 9:30. I always like to judge. Some days I'm early on the poll. It goes in at 8:30. But this has only been up for about 39 minutes.
Wow, we got a lot of votes.
Already almost 200. And here's how it's playing out. Trump versus the judge. Who's right? Trump, illegal migrants and gangs have no right to be here, 68%. 27% say it's got to be the judge.
Mm-hmm.
Even a president has to comply with whatever this judge rules. And 5% are saying, looking at it, maybe it's just too much power for one judge, create a better system. You and I had on the show earlier this morning, Shannon Bream.
Yes.
I love Shannon, and I love her perspective because she was a Supreme Court reporter before she ever really started covering the White House.
Yeah,
and
very
politics.
smart. Yes.
And she said amongst the judiciary, there is talk that system is broken because if you're a liberal interest group, you know which judge you can go to get your way. If you're a conservative interest group, you also know, like she said, maybe you go to a judge in Texas or Florida.
Right.
On the other hand, you go to a judge in California or Oregon or Washington or somewhere in D.C. if you want the liberal ruling to come down. So creating a different system, she said, is something that's actively being talked about.
Yeah, well, it's like anything at home. It's like if you're a kid and mom's going to say yes and dad's going to say no, you're going to go to mom. If dad's going to say yes, you're going to go to dad.
Celeste,
let me read.
That is super wisdom here on the stream. Seriously, that's so much wisdom.
Okay, so let me read a couple of these comments from some
please.
folks on the poll question. Thank you, by the way, to everybody who's sharing your thoughts. So we have Bad Opinions Squid 1735 says the president needs to follow the law too. By all means, get rid of the criminals, but only after you give each one their due process. Because for all you know, some of them may not be criminals. Lisa Dinsmore on the other side says the first one and the last one. She's referencing the two poll questions. She says Trump, illegal migrants, and gangs have no right to be here. Too much power for one judge. Create a better system. She also says Trump has to do what he has to do. And so I think you have his approval ratings are what now, Ron? Because
this is interesting. They're the highest they've ever been, but they're at 49%.
Yeah,
so
nearly 50.
Doug Luzader told us today he has a floor and a ceiling. The floor is kind of like 42, 43%, and the ceiling is right around 50.
And one of the arguments you hear from people who voted for him was this is what we voted for. This is why we voted for him.
Right.
We wanted him to, slash government spending and make our city safer and get rid of all these things,
By the way, we love all your comments in the chat box. There's Paul saying, good morning, Celeste.
Hey, Paul, good morning.
Lisa is saying good morning to Philip, and Jim is saying good morning to Lisa. This is like, we got to go to a break, but this is like a bunch of friends getting together. Here's
love
the
it.
mystery cam. Where do you think it is? Back in 2 minutes. Oh, we are having some fun guessing on today's mystery cam. Celeste, you seeing any good action from our wonderful, loyal viewers?
I am. Good morning to Mary Stringham. She is in Montana, but she's watching on the stream right now. And Brian, who you just heard that round of applause behind the scenes, he's from Montana. So he said, yes, Mary. We have Lisa Dinsmore in terms of our mystery camp.
Okay.
Let's get back on track, Ron.
Yeah,
Alabama. Jen Swall says Kentucky.
Okay.
Linda Montorth, Virginia. We've got Sherry Nevada Pup says Illinois. Kim Winnett says Arkansas. So lots of really good answers this morning.
Because we're a streaming show and anything goes, I'm going to punch a button right now.
Anything
Celeste.
goes, Ron? Anything?
Yes, anything. I'm going to punch a button. I don't know if it's going to.
Oh, wow.
At one time, we had a camera mounted around here so I could actually show you Brian, our director, in the big room.
Yes.
But, yeah, no, it's not. It's probably been removed.
We're going to push this button. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll just see. We'll see.
I know what happens when I push this one. We're back to the mystery camp. Anyway, Brian says it's Pennsylvania. He even thinks it's the actual town of Hershey, PA. What are you saying, Celeste?
I'm going to go with Brian on this one. He's right a lot of times. Let me just give you this. Tyler Lewis says, I am stumped, but I'll say Georgia. What are you going to say? What are you going to say, Ron?
I'm going to. Well, Brian is so certain.
Yeah,
that I think
he got up out of
have
his chair,
to.
ran to the screen.
He's already been giving himself a round of applause. So here she is on the Syleste cam.
Sure enough,
Everybody, what do
Hershey,
we got?
PA.
That's great. And he said it was because the The light posts are in the shape of little Hershey kisses.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Nice work, Brian.
Subliminally makes
Round
your
of
mouth
applause
water
for
for
him.
chocolate. Way to go, Bri.
Yes.
Okay, I got to get that camera figured out so you guys can see Brian on those days when he wins. Celeste, should the United States join the British Commonwealth? Now, I thought that we fought a war about this in 1776.
Why
was the Declaration of Independence, and then we had a war. It was George Washington versus Lord Cornwallis. Are we going to go back into the British Commonwealth?
Why are we joining them? Shouldn't they be joining us?
Well, the president just said this morning in a brief post on social that he says, look, I love King Charles, and the king apparently, this is reporting from Daily Mail, is apparently going to offer that America, to strengthen the ties between our two nations, the king's going to offer membership in the British Commonwealth to the USA. And the president said, quote, it sounds good to me. I love King Charles.
Okay, so what does that mean? What are the benefits? Like, do we get to like a cut on our flight to Heathrow?
Do you want to fly into Heathrow? Don't get me started on that, Celeste. By the way,
they're supposed to fly normal tomorrow. There'll be a domino effect with the flight delays, but
how inept could you look any more inept? You have this major airport, and there's a fire at a substation a couple of miles down the road.
I know.
And you can't figure out a backup power generating system?
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I was the king. I wouldn't chop off anybody's head. Let me say that.
No guillotine.
But, yeah.
What about a firing squad, Ron?
Not even that. But I would fire some people for not having multiple backup plans in place.
I know.
Now, the power grid came out a little while ago, the UK power grid, and said, Celeste, they had temporarily restored power.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean? It's just a quick headline. But we have had flights that literally took off from airports around the U.S. And got about as far as North Dakota and then turned around and flew right back home.
Know.
And then you land and you're like, okay, but we probably don't have a gate. We probably have no answers. You have lost your ability to fly over there today. I mean, it's just such an embarrassment that they didn't plan for redundancies years ago.
Well, and if you think about it, some of these flights, they're not just headed to Europe.
Right.
People connect through London to go anywhere around the world. Asia, Russia, everywhere.
Right. Sure. Can I just tell you, the last time I flew to London, which was last year, I purposely did not fly into Heathrow.
Really?
It's become too big. It's too much of a conglomeration. They don't have enough gates, so sometimes you have to land and just sit there and wait for some dude to show up with some stairs. And then they put these stairs up, and then you got to go on a bus, and you're like, where are we even going? It's become too big, and Gatwick is an easier airport to navigate.
Oh, okay,
it's just
Gatwick.
harder to get a flight.
We don't talk about that very often.
No,
Where
we
is
don't.
Gatwick?
So it's south of London, whereas Heathrow would be to the west of London. But I think Heathrow is probably 3 times larger.
I was going to say
maybe.
it's probably pretty small.
Yeah. It's a decent airport if you can find a flight into there, and they don't shut down because, some bird flew into a power station or something. By the way, they say there's absolutely no indication of foul play.
No.
Police are investigating, but you know what? Substations catch fire.
I know. Unfortunately,
I
they
drive
do.
past out in Mesa.
Yeah.
I drive past several substations. They've never shut down Sky Harbor.
No, well, they haven't shut it down, but do you remember what was it? We had it this morning, 2021. The lights went out.
Oh, I do remember.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
And the flights were, and I there's probably maybe a handful of times in the last 12 years that's happened. One time they had to remember those paper tickets that we used to get at the ticket counter. One time they had to start like with the carbon copy underneath.
Yes.
That one of those times I was sitting there, I was doing a story. It was at Terminal 2. I think it was United.
Yeah.
And they actually had to start writing out the tickets with the carbon copy underneath so that people could board the plane because all the systems went dead.
Remember when Southwest had their meltdown around Christmas time a couple years ago? They were doing the same thing. They were handwriting tickets. So anyway.
So the carbon copy, it's actually a good thing. I do it on my checks. Ron, do you still write checks?
No, number one. Number two, I'm about ready to give up on flying. Build me a bullet train, and I'll just go that route, because every day there's some issue with the airports or a plane or the air traffic control tower.
By the way, Ron, Lisa Dinsmore says, "Hey, Ron, love your tie, and hey, do we get an hour today?"
Not today, Lise. I have to run that by some of the highest ranking executives in the newsroom.
And they're very serious.
They're very serious. It takes a little bit of a sales pitch.
Yeah. You walk in with a smile, maybe like a gluten-free snack.
Okay, so hey, would you just grab the other half of this morning?
Okay.
So here is. We are highly impartial journalists.
We are actually.
Except when it comes to some of our favorite teams. You love your ASU Sun Devils.
I do. I'm a Sun Devil at heart.
I love my Washington Huskies.
But we also love the Lopes.
We love GCU. So the game, this is kind of an odd situation, but they're going to have a watch party over there on campus. But there'll be a bunch of watch parties. But you have to make sure that you have 2 TVs. Because through an odd TV quirk, the way this all works, both the men's and women's teams are going to be playing at about the same time.
Oh, really? I thought one was at 12:30 and the other was a little bit later, no?
Well, the one is at 12:30.
Okay.
That's the women's game in Waco.
Yes.
Which, don't get me started, GCU had a 30-game win streak.
It's amazing.
The disrespect shown by the committee that the GCU Lady Lopes have to go all the way to Baylor, not to some location that is, shall we say, neutral?
Yeah.
That's the hometown of Baylor.
I know. So now they got to play in front of Baylor's home, crowd.
At least play it in
what?
like El Paso.
By the way, let's see. Someone actually loves carbon copies, Ron. in the chat box.
Who's that?
Low philosophy.
Okay.
Old-fashioned carbon copies, he says.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the carbon copies.
Anyway, so we are so excited about the Lopes. So the deal is 12:30 for the Lady Lopes.
Yes.
In Waco to play Baylor. At least with the men's tournament, there is the appearance of being more fair, because the men are playing at 1:30.
Oh, I see.
So there's an overlap of probably a good hour and a half there.
Yeah.
But that game is going to be in Seattle at 1:30. And then we haven't spent enough time talking about the U of A Wildcats, Syleste,
Ron,
because
I think our time is up.
Okay, let's...
No, I'm kidding.